What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Hamilton Training Podcast. If you are new here, welcome to the show. My name is Jared Hamilton, and it feels like it has been a minute. So it's been a minute since we've done a podcast. I feel bad, No, things have been absolutely crazy. I thought things were crazy before, but things are super crazy. So I figured I would at least kind of elaborate and kind of tell you guys the story. So as you can see, if you're watching the YouTube, I don't know if it sounds any different, but if you're watching the YouTube video, subtle plug, go subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can watch the podcasts instead of just listening to them. But anyway, so if you're watching the YouTube video, my background is very different. So we actually moved. So actually what's funny is if you watch the YouTube video over the next several episodes, you'll see my background slowly changing because I'm in my new office. We just moved into a new house, Shelby and I did, and the dogs. So I have a not garage office now. My last office was literally in our garage. So I'm actually in our upstairs right now, and I'm really excited to do some really cool shit to the room. But otherwise, things were crazy, guys. I'm telling you, between the month or 6 weeks or whatever it was, we were shopping for a house and then going to showings every day, and then selling our house and people coming in looking at it and and just all sorts of crazy stuff. And then the actual buying process is holy shit. Right now the market has just been crazy. So it's just been a whole nother gambit. So things have been bonkers, which I'm not complaining by any means. I'm just giving you context around why, content hasn't been consistent and podcasting hasn't been consistent and things like that. And then I actually just got back from Arizona. So I just got off a plane yesterday from the time of recording this. And I was out visiting all of my other coaching friends and my mentor and things like that, and took some of the team with me out to Arizona for Coaching Con 2022. It's just this massive coaching event that brings in some of the best speakers out there and teaching coaches how to build their businesses better and how to level up themselves and things like that. So my voice is still a little bit not 100% from that, but either way, I wanted to come at you, get a new podcast episode out. Excuse me. But otherwise, I'm so excited you're here. So thank you for sticking with me. A lot of you guys have been asking on Q&As and stuff hey, when's the next episode? So that's what we're doing now. So I've got my notes here. If you see me going back and forth, I don't want to miss anything. So, but like I said, if you're listening to this on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever, be sure if you are into watching your podcasts, I like to sometimes watch mine. If I'm just going to be sitting down listening, I'll throw it up on YouTube, some of my favorite ones. So we're doing that now on YouTube. So you can totally go watch these episodes on YouTube, youtube.com/Jared Hamilton, and be sure to subscribe there. Or if that's where you're watching it right now, be sure and subscribe. Now, the other ask that I have is wherever you're listening to this, number one, subscribe. That way you're the first to know whenever new episodes come out. But then also do me a favor, do me a super solid. I do this for free, and I really want you to do this one favor for me. Please leave a review. If you're on iTunes or Stitcher, I think Spotify now might let you do reviews too, but I would really appreciate a review and a good star rating on the podcast, only if the content's good though. If you're getting a lot of value out of this, let's talk about it. That way we can get more ears to listen and more eyes to view all this stuff. I'd be really, really appreciative of that. Now, wow, my voice is a little more tired than I thought, or a little kind of hoarse more than I thought it was, but we're going to power through. We're going to power through. So, the other thing big before we get started, because I have a really cool episode for you today. That's just hit me out of nowhere a couple days ago, and I wrote it down and wanted to do a whole podcast episode on it. So, but before we get into that, I did want to say a big thank you to the sponsors of the show, the two big ones that you guys know I'm all about. Number one is Flex Pro. It's especially, guys, to be honest with you, with all of the craziness between traveling, lots of traveling with business stuff, this whole back and forth with moving and just things being uncertain. And I'm not sure what and apparently my alarm just went off for some reason. So sorry about that. But you know what? We're going to keep that in there just because that's what happens sometimes with real people. So we're keeping that in there. Sorry, David. So no, as I was saying, with Flex Pro, I've been using them more than normal. Between all the stuff with moving and bouncing from house to house, all this crazy stuff, I have literally been eating so many Flex Pro meals. It's unreal. So it kept me out of a lot of drive-thrus and saved me a lot of money. So if your life is like mine and just unpredictable, and that you go through times of just things being crazy, and you don't want to eat at a drive-thru every fucking day, be sure and get your your fridge on deck with some Flex Pro. They're fantastic, guys. They're made by a chef. They're going to keep you in line with your goals, and they taste absolutely amazing. So, but I want to save you some money. So if you do use them, go to flexpromeals.com. I'll also leave a link below, but you'll want to use my code Hamilton Trained, and it will knock off 20%, which is a pretty good amount of money. So, and then the other sponsor of mine is, I want to have a big thank you to First Form. As you guys know, like I don't talk a ton about supplements because, it's not the big ticket item. It's not the big, end all be all, but they absolutely have their time and their place. And if you are going to take them, you want to take good stuff. Like you don't want to be like taking like trash supplements with a ton of fillers that aren't made by good companies and things like that. So First Form is literally the best in the industry. Like don't take my word for it. Like go just do a tiny bit of research and you'll be like, holy shit. So big thank you to them. They always keep me taken care of. But I'll leave a link below for free shipping. I'm telling you guys, their shit is on point. If you take supplements or like you're struggling with stuff like recovery or joint pain or energy, and you're doing all the right stuff with your nutrition and your training, like let's say you just can't get enough protein in with food, protein powder. If you're struggling with like pre-workout energy, like you can totally take a pre-workout. I can actually have a video talking about everything that I take and how much it helps, like whether it be joint pain or whatever it is, like they have something for you. And it's a really good spot to get it from because it's safe, it's like third-party tested. Because the supplement industry, guys, is also really unregulated. Like the amount of like people selling supplements out of their basements and they aren't monitored by a really big governing body. Like a lot of shit happens in the supplement industry. So First Form, you don't have to ever worry about that. So be sure and check them out. The link is in my description. Like I said, I have a free shipping link down there for you. Now let's get into today's episode. I know we're like 7 minutes in already, but I have a really cool idea for today's episode that I wanted to talk about. So we are talking today about the concept of raising your floor. Okay, what do I mean by that? Too often when we're going through this game of like transformation and working on ourselves and losing weight and feeling better and ending suffering and getting happier, most people have their focus off. Most people are trying to raise their ceiling, but I want to talk to you about raising your floor. And this is not, here's the thing, this is not sexy. What I'm about to teach you is not exciting, but it is revolutionary because if you implement this, you will get better results with less effort and be able to sustain those results for really fucking long, like forever. Because the truth is, here's where most people go wrong. Let me take a step back. At the end of the day, we all have a ceiling and a floor. What I mean by that is a ceiling is our best day, right? Our ceiling is like us on our best day, and our floor is like us on our worst day. Well, too often, like good days are fucking good days, right? Like, but too often, most people think about how to make their best day better versus how to make their worst day a little bit better. What I mean by that is why it's so important in the world of weight loss and transformation and ending all the struggles you're having is too many people go on like the huge roller coaster. Like their highs are astronomically high and their lows are like astronomically low, which leads you on the emotional and physical roller coaster where things are like, oh my gosh, and holy fuck, and oh my gosh, and holy fuck, versus we got to make this a little less extreme. Now, don't take this out of context. The realm of what you're doing is never going to be like a perfectly straight line, but there's a big difference. Like if you're watching the YouTube video, there's a big difference between if this was on a graph chart of like you being able to show up for yourself and results and all this stuff, instead of it being this huge, crazy graph of like insane highs and super crazy lows, it's just a little bit more moderate. We don't want the advanced roller coaster. We want the child's roller coaster where it's just little ups, little downs, little ups, little downs, not like holy fucking shit, like crazy levels, if that makes sense. So we're not talking about how to make your best day better. We're talking about just raising your floor of you on your worst day. Because too often when we are like, here's what happens. People start off, and this may be you, maybe not. People start off with this game of they're like, all right, I want to make my life better. I want to lose weight. I want to feel better. I want to stop binge eating, whatever it is. They're like, I'm going to take it seriously. I'm going all in, like whatever bullshit. Then they're like, they're doing way too much stuff. They're trying to be perfect. They're trying to do like 17 different habits. They have like a 4-hour morning routine, this crazy gym workout, all these fucking supplements, this crazy complex nutrition protocol. And they're like, fuck yeah, I'm awesome. I'm feeling great. Well, because you're motivated, right? It's brand new. It's the new shiny. Of course you're crushing like that. Well, then because you're on such a high, well, now you have a bad day. Now you move, like your kids are sick, like life is someone dies, your dog is sick, whatever's going on. and you're not able to have that high of a high day. Because let's be honest, we all have uncertainty. We all have chaos. We all have like craziness going on, right? Well, then that leads to a low of a low, right? It's my big issue with all in, all out, because like, cool, you're all in when you're all in, but what happens when you're anything but all in? Well, you're all out. There's no balance. This is why raising your floor is so important. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, here's the thing, guys. I don't give a shit about your ceiling, right? You on your best day is going to crush. You're going to do what you said you would do. You're going to get your workouts in. You're going to eat like you should. You're going to show up for yourself. You're going to do your inner work. You're going to be there for yourself, right? Because you're motivated. It's your ceiling. It's your best day. My thing is like, we need to talk about your low days. We need to talk about you not feeling so great. We need to talk about the rough days. That's why we're just going to raise your floor a little bit. Right? What do most people's floor looks like? Quitting, throwing in the towel, not doing anything, saying I'm an all or nothing person and giving up, going, oh, you know what? I'll just start over Monday. That's most people's floor. Well, we need to raise that floor. Like, instead of that, there's so many other things that we can do, and we'll get into that. That's why it's not about, like, most people have their perspective off. Most people are like, no, I need to work hard. Like, let's say they're not where they want to be, right? And they're like, well, I'm already like working out really hard, and I'm eating really strict, and I'm already doing all this stuff. And they're like, well, I need to do more. I need to do more cardio. I need to take away more calories. I need to eat even more clean. I need to eat whatever. But the problem is you're already on a ceiling. Like, no, that's not the problem. Let's not make your ceiling harder and more intense. We need to bring up your floor, right? Because at the end of the day, you don't have as many ceiling days. We don't have the high of the highs every day. The problem isn't making your better days even better. It's like, no, let's bring your shit days up just a little bit. Right? All right. Imagine like if your shit days, like your floor, we just raised by 20%, 30%, 10%. Fuck. Most of your guys' floors are quitting. What if we just didn't quit? What if we just like gave a little bit of a shit, right? So this is why we're going to talk about, and I'm going to give you some tactics, because that's what this is about. This is about being philosophically tactical. We're going to talk about how to make your worst day better. So how to do that. I got my notes here so I don't go too off in my ADHD rabbit hole. So how to do that. Number one, if you're taking notes, write these down. Number one, most people fail from the beginning. Okay. Before we even have the worst day, most people set themselves up for failure. Because most people build their program, right? Most people look at, like, when they get serious and like, oh, I'm going to change my life, they build this thing with their best day in mind, and they don't even think about it on their worst day. Because you have to realize you need your best you on your worst day. But you have to understand your best you on your best day is a very different version of yourself than the best you on your worst day. You see what I'm saying? It's like when people are motivated, good, happy, and feeling great and having the time of their life, you're a different person than when you are in a low, right? So this is one of those things where most people fuck this up from the very beginning, and they set themselves up for failure because when they're like, all right, I'm going to get my shit together. I'm going to work out 5 days a week. I'm going to eat really, 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 really clean, even though that terminology is a whole other issue. I'm going to do all these different things. I should be losing like a pound a week. it's like, whoa, hang on. What I want you to do is I want you to build this thing from your worst day in mind. And that's not me being cynical. That's me being realistic. Because you have to understand, like, well, what's your worst day look like? Because if you set if think about it, if you go attack this thing with like, I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to work out 5 days a week. I'm going to carb cycle. I'm going to have a 3-hour morning routine. I'm going to meditate for an hour and a half every day. I'm going to do all this stuff. Well, what happens when you have your worst day? Or what happens when you have a mediocre day? Like, realistically, you don't have your best day that often. So if you set yourself out for your best day ever, like your ceiling, what's going to happen when you're busy or chaos hits or uncertainty hits or your family takes a toll or someone passes away or you go into overtime at work or your kids are sick every day or whatever? Like, this is when people fall off, right? This is when it's like things were great when things were great, but what about when things are shitty? Right? One thing that we do with clients is we give them what I call the all-season plan. They make progress or at least definitely not regress during chaos and during uncertainty and during struggle of life. That's what this is about. So how to go about raising your floor is, how do you set this thing up from the very beginning with your worst day in mind? Because again, we need your best you on your worst day, but that's a whole different person than your best you on your best day. You see what I mean? So I would ask then, not being cynical, but build this thing from like, well, what's your worst day look like? You know, what's it look like when you're crazy? What's it look like when school is nuts? What's it like when kids are all over the place? What's that look like? It's like, oh shit, well, maybe we should work out 2 days a week. Maybe we should Just make better decisions to start off with. Well, maybe we should just journal for 2 minutes in the morning and not an hour and a half morning routine. Maybe we should have an at-home program to start with because, you're getting ready to go into a busy season where you can't get to the gym. Maybe we should just start with walking. Maybe we should just sit in silence for 5 minutes instead of doing a crazy fucking yoga protocol, right? Like, what's your worst day look like? Well, let's start with that because keep in mind that's better than nothing, but it's also practical. You see what I mean? Number 2, what happens? Again, it goes back to what happens on your worst day. What do patterns tell us? Because now, what can we do with that? Here's the thing. This is where guys, you have to understand one of the most powerful skills you can master or really just implement into your repertoire of skills is pattern recognition, right? Awareness around that. What do your patterns look like? Like how, like realistically, like objective, or like don't forget emotion for a second. How often do you have a not ceiling day? Your high of a high, right? Think about how often are you having your floor days or your, step stool days, like just not the greatest. Well, what do those look like? What do they have in common? Right? How often do they happen? What do they have in common? What always goes down? Is it a work issue? Is it a kid issue? Is it your own mindset issue? Is it a job issue? Is it what happens? Because when these things happen, that's what we need to build around. Not you on your off day, not you on, when school is out, not you when your kids are not sick. It's like, no, we got to build this thing around, all right, you on when things are not that great, because now you can make progress through that and execute and crush, right? But again, most people attack this thing. They're like, most people build this thing. They're like, well, I got to lose weight faster. I'm serious this time. I'm all in like the videos say. I got to lose like a pound a day. It's like, well, hang on, Sarah, like we have to take a step back and not attack it that way because that's the mentality that keeps people dieting for decades. Does that make sense? Then number 3, we have to get your perspective right. Because again, perspective is everything. It's absolutely everything. If your perspective is off on this, it's no wonder you're going to struggle. That's why the whole point to be honest with you, like half my content in like the podcast is I just want to make you go, oh, I never thought about it like that. I want a perspective shift. You know what I mean? So let's get your perspective right. How do think about like, we don't want like I mentioned earlier, we don't want the huge roller coaster, right? This is the problem with letting your highs get too high and your lows get too low. I mean, think of it this way. Think of like when people celebrate, like let's say you lose 5 pounds overnight because you took a big shit. Well, like, oh my gosh, I lost 5 pounds. Holy fuck, 5 pounds a day. Let's go. And they're like freaking out. Well, when you gain 1.5 pounds overnight because you had a lot of salt, you're going to be fucking debilitated. Right? Don't let your highs get too high. Don't let your lows get too low. But it's the same thing with how you build this. If you are all in, well, that means you're going to be all out. You have to understand that one of the laws of the universe is the law of polarity, right? Light on, light off. If there's an inside of this room, there's an outside of this room. If there's positive, there's negative. Well, if your high gets way fucking high, well, that means your low is going to get really fucking low. We can't let that happen. That's why perspective matters and all these steps matter. So we don't want that huge roller coaster. We don't want you to have your ceiling of like a crazy high ceiling of like, I work out every fucking day. I eat totally perfect. I eat as little as possible. I take all the supplements. All this crazy stuff. It's like, well, take a step back. How about instead of all the supplements, we take just protein powder because your protein sucks anyway. Well, how about instead of working out every single day, how about we like strength train just like a couple days? And if you have time, maybe go on a walk with your kids or your dog. Well, how about instead of a crazy morning routine, how about you just like sit in silence when you drink your coffee in the mornings? Like it's these kind of things. Let's not like base this off your highest ceiling. Let's just raise your floor a little bit. It's such a huge thing. Because at the end of the day, we want more of a less intense trend. It's going to avoid those crazy highs and crazy lows. Like I said, if you think of like roller coasters on like more advanced and less advanced, if you're like the number one roller coaster in the world, it's going to have insane highs and insane lows. Well, what's a kiddie roller coaster? It's like barely high, barely low, barely high, barely low. And guess what? It's not exciting. But but here's perspective. You don't want this to be exciting. You don't want your transformation journey to be like, holy fuck. It's like when a client, like we'll have clients message us. They're like, well, I haven't seen dramatic progress yet. And I'm like, you will never, like, you're not supposed to. From day 1 to like 6 months from now, okay, dramatic progress. Day 1 to like day 365, okay, dramatic progress. But when we're looking at this thing from a week to week to week to week to week basis, you will never see dramatic progress because it's not supposed to be. Here's a reality check. Progress is not supposed to be dramatic. Think of it this way. If you're reading a book 1 page at a time, you don't notice how much you go through that book till you get to the end of it, right? Imagine like being like a chapter into the book and you're like, well, I haven't seen any dramatic progress with my pages. It's like, because you're reading them 1 page at a time, right? If you look at yourself in the mirror every single day, you're not going to see dramatic hair growth, right? If you like look at yourself in the mirror every single day for 6 months and go day 1, day 300, or let's say that's a year. Like let's say that, like, let's say you look at yourself in the mirror every single day for a year, you're never going to see dramatic hair growth because it's every single day incrementally. But if you look at yourself day 1, day 365, well, now you've seen dramatic hair growth. It's the same thing with this stuff. You should never be seeing astronomical progress in like such a micro time. That's why this game gets so hard, guys. It's one of the big reasons is because you're in this thing on the micro every single day, but we're looking for progress on the macro, right? There's a term I like to use. It's called macro patience, but micro speed. But this is where a lot of people get really impatient because the results are on the macro. Like, what's that life look like 6 months from now, a year from now, a year and a half from now? That's how progress works and results work on the macro. But to have macro progress and macro results, you have to master the micro. What's your day-to-day look like? Are you in your calorie deficit every day? Are you taking your maintenance breaks? Are you drinking your water? Are you getting your exercise in a couple days a week? Are you doing your inner work every day? Are you getting your steps in? Are you eating enough protein? Are you eating enough plants? Are you sleeping well enough? Like those are micros, right? The day-to-day to day-to-day. But if you're like, that's why people get impatient because they're like, holy shit, I've been doing this for a whole 30 days. Oh my gosh, 30 days of tracking is a lot, right? A month of workouts is a lot. Like when you're in this thing every single day, it's a lot. But then it's like you look up and you're like, oh, it's only been a month. I want to quit. I haven't seen progress. But then it's like you also know realistically, like 30 days is nothing. But when you're in it every day, it feels like you're in it for a much longer time than you are. It's like the whole analogy of like you don't see the forest because of the trees because you're so close to the trees. So that's the big reality with all of this. We have to make this thing work long term because again, long term is everything. We're not looking for anything crazy. We're not looking for this short term bullshit. That's not what we're here for. If that's you, get out or come to our side, right? So then that's it. Raise your floor. Think less of raising your ceiling and making your best day better. We're thinking about how to make your worst day better just by 10 or 20%. We're raising the floor and that's it. So I hope you got a lot out of this episode. If you did, please tell a friend. Actually, you know what I really appreciate? Like real talk, I would appreciate number 1, you to subscribe to the podcast and leave me a review. But what I would really appreciate is if you screenshot this and put this on your story. TikTok now has stories for most people. Instagram obviously has stories, but like if you like one of my favorite things ever to see is someone who really listens to the podcast, screenshot it, put it on their story and tag me in it. And I will always reshare that because it really shows me that like this is helping a lot of people and it's resonating with you because that's why I do it. I want to help you. And there's not a lot of places other than like long form content I can really do that. Like we're like almost a half hour in. Because I can't do that on Instagram, right? I can't do that on TikTok. That's why I've always appreciated it, really appreciated my podcast listeners because you guys are a different breed of people, right? You get it. You're in this for the right reasons. This is like you're literally listening to me rant into a mic for like a half hour. So you're a different quality of person who's ready to take this shit seriously. Sorry, words. So I appreciate that. So if you don't mind, so I can show other people like that, I would love it if you'd screenshot this, put it on your story and tag me in it. Mean a lot to me. Now, where else to go from here? Actually, hang on a second. Sorry, I just saw a phone call coming in. I'm like, nope, we are ending that real quick. Otherwise, we're wrapping up. So lastly, here's where I want you to go from here. If this is resonating with you and you're like, okay, cool, let's do this. There's 3 things I want you to do. Number 1, if you're not part of it already, go join our Facebook group. It's called Fat Loss Simplified. I'll leave the link below in the description. I'm telling you, we got a family in there. It's totally free. You got a community of everyone else who's in the right spot who get this. Right? That we're about ending the struggle, ending the suffering the right way. And this is the kind of stuff we talk about. So you'll love it. If you haven't already, be sure and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube because we're over there. I'll leave a link below as well. And then if you're brand new and you're like, holy shit, I don't even know where to start with this. I'm brand new. I'm overwhelmed. I don't even know how to fucking start. Well, good for you, because I have a free resource for you. If you go to the link below, I have a free course. It's my A to Z it's basically my 5-day fat loss course. It's the A to Z how to basically go about this stuff the right way and make it really, really simple and doable. And it's not that big of a deal. Like, that's how fat loss should be. It should be more like brushing your teeth and less like a root canal. And I have a whole course on it if you're brand new that I made for you. So otherwise, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I will talk to you next time.